What's going on, everybody? It's Derek here, back with Dog Media, coming to you with the Week 4 breakdown. Today, we're gonna go over the Thursday night football game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. The absolute whooping that the Packers took. We're also gonna go over the early games with Sunday. Remember, there is a 8:30 a.m. Central Time game because it is being played in London between the Atlanta Falcons and Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk a little bit about just some news, some breaking news, some injury news, things of that nature. But let's get right into it. So the Detroit Lions traveled to Green Bay to play the Packers. They absolutely whooped them. It was 24-3 at one point in the first half. Or actually 27-3. The Packers came out strong in the second half, scoring 8 points. They actually outscored the Lions in the second half 17-7. However, a huge penalty by Quay Walker towards the end of the game actually cost the Packers the game, turned a field goal into 7 points. Just things that you can't have happen to your team at that point in the game. But the Packers gave themselves a fighting chance in the second half. It was just all Detroit from the opening snap. Jared Goff went for 210 yards and one touchdown, along with one interception on the first drive of the game, in which the Packers took inside the 20 and could not capitalize on that interception. David Montgomery had a monster game with 32 carries, 121 yards, and three touchdowns. He stole the goal line work. It was much like a DeAndre Swift situation last year where Swift would get into the red zone and they would just give the ball to Jamal Williams. However, Jahmyr Gibbs just isn't being utilized how we think a first round running back should be utilized. I mean, 32 carries for a David Montgomery who was questionable all week and who I thought would have actually been out this week is ridiculous. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 carries is not going to get it done for a running back, especially a fantasy running back that you spent a third round or fourth round pick on. He did get involved in the passing game a little bit. He caught 4 catches for 11 yards, which still just isn't exactly what you want to see, but 5 targets for a running back is still really good. I mean, Montgomery only had 2 targets. However, he caught both of them for 20 yards. This is a backfield that I'm starting David Montgomery, but I'm looking to trade Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, this team isn't going to utilize him the way everyone thought they would. He's going to be more of a gadget player this year, at least while they have David Montgomery. If it's a dynasty league, of course, you're going to hold on to Gibbs. However, in a redraft league, probably look to trade him, or at least that's what I would try to do. I'm not sold on this offense with Jahmyr Gibbs yet. Um, on the Packers side of the ball, Jordan Love was abysmal, 23 for 36 with 246 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He was also sacked 5 times with their makeshift O line. Aaron Jones, he only carried the ball 5 times for 18 yards. But then again, AJ Dillon did also only carry the ball 5 times for 11 yards. Just the game script, they weren't going to run the ball from the opening whistle. This game was not set up for them to just feed the ball to Aaron Jones. Romeo Dobbs had the best day receiving, 9 for 95 on 13 targets. Even with Christian Watson on the field, Romeo Dobbs is the go-to guy for Jordan Love, it seems. So I'm rostering him. I'm starting him every week. Christian Watson was on the field and still only received 4 targets. One downfield look, I believe, but this offense as a general just didn't get into a rhythm. Jaden Reed, 3 for 55 on a long, most of his day was salvaged by a long 44-yard reception and a 2 point conversion reception. Luke Musgrave was knocked out early with a concussion. Monitor him. He's likely not going to play next week. Usually, people in concussion protocol will miss the following week. So he probably won't play. Look to pivot next week. This is early insight going into week 5 next week. Just be on the lookout that he's probably not going to play. But yeah, Jordan Love, just over 50% completion percentage isn't really what you want to see for a quarterback that you want to be fantasy reliable. However, he salvaged the day with the rushing touchdown. He did have a rushing touchdown early on in the second half. So that's something to be looking out for. Maybe CJ Stroud, I think, is a better option going forward than Jordan Love. Um, if Jordan Love couldn't get a good fantasy day against the Detroit Lions, who aren't particularly great against the pass, I think maybe you need to look to pivot. He still had a decent fantasy day. I know in our league where passing touchdowns are worth 6 points, he did still end up with I think 18 or 19 points. So it's still decent, but still you're looking for 20 plus points from a quarterback. I think CJ Stroud is, like I said, a better option going forward. Even Brock Purdy, just because of the weapons in the offensive line. Now, once this offensive line gets healthy, maybe this is a different conversation. But I mean, Jordan Love's next few games are the Raiders, the Broncos, the Vikings, and the Rams. So these are very feasible matchups. So it's something to monitor. If he can't get it done against these beatable secondaries and beatable defenses, then maybe you want to start looking to drop him or pivot or find another option. I think you hold on to him and see how he does against the Ravens and the Broncos. These are two great matchups for him to get back on track fantasy wise and NFL wise. However, if he can't get it done and he still struggles and he's still not completing passes and he's still turning the ball over, then yeah, I think you need to look to pivot. Amon Ra, however, was a pretty decent game for him through the air, 5 for 56 and a touchdown. Sam Laporta, again, is a very viable tight end. I think he's a top five tight end for the rest of season. 4 for 56 on five targets. I mean, he's another downfield guy. But to talk a little bit now, we're gonna say this is pivoting into some news. Jamison Williams, the NFLPA reached an agreement with the NFL to restructure the gambling penalties if you gamble. If you're an NFL player and you gamble, they restructured the punishments for that. So with that being said, I think the new ones is first offense is 2 game suspension, second offense is 4 to 6 game suspension, and then third offense is a year-long suspension, so on and so forth, with of course fines to go along with that. But with this new agreement, Jameson Williams is actually his suspension is shortened from 6 games to now he's available to come back next week. So this is someone that y'all want to roster now. I was fortunate enough to pick him up last week and stash him in my league. I know at the beginning of the year, I said this is a guy I want to pass on, but this was before I saw how this offense was going to look. I mean, Josh Reynolds is very fantasy relevant. He posted 3 for 69 this week, even alongside a fully healthy offense. Jameson Williams is going to easily slide into that wide receiver 2 role, and Jared Goff is looking to push the ball downfield. They're putting up points. They're passing the ball. They're scoring the ball. They're scoring a lot of points for them. Offensively, I think Jameson Williams is a guy that I want to grab while I still can. I'm not looking to start him necessarily next week, but going forward, this is a viable, very talented wide receiver in what is a very good offense, elite offense. I would say one of the on the top end of the NFL. So you really want all of the talent that you can get in those offenses, and Jameson Williams is just someone that's going to stretch the field and give you big play after big play, much like Deshaun Jackson back in the day. Um, Shout out Deshaun Jackson, as you can see. But yeah, let's start breaking down these games for this week 4. Here's the slate. Starting off again, like I said, an early game Sunday. They're playing in London. Falcons versus the Jaguars. The over under is 43 points, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 3-point favorites. Now, Kyle Pitts is really good in London. In his last London game, he had 8 catches for over 100 yards. Now, I don't know if you are the superstitious type, but I'm not starting him personally. I think there's better options out there at tight end. Bijan is locked in your lineup. Algier, he's trending down for me. He's not in my lineup anymore. After that first week, I think it was a spoof. I think he's no longer going to. I think what saved him that week was the 2 rushing touchdowns, obviously. Um, Without those, he's not fantasy relevant. We're not even having this conversation. So, yeah, you're starting Drake London most likely. If you have a pivot option, I would say like someone like Josh Downs, I think, is a better option to start than Drake London just because of the passing volume of the Falcons. Now, who's to say that Drake London and Kyle Pitts don't actually absolutely go off this week? I'm not. I don't count on it. I'm never counting on it again. Um, but that's a personal decision that y'all have to make and y'all have to weigh your pros and cons and look at y'all's roster. If you have a better option than Drake London, start him. On the Jaguars side, Trevor Lawrence, this whole offense has been completely disappointing. I really figured Trevor Lawrence would take that step up and be a top five quarterback this week, or this year rather, with Calvin Ridley, and again with Christian Kirk coming back, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne fully healthy, Tank Bigsby, but this offense is just look horrible. Evan Ingram, even it just hasn't looked good. Trevor Lawrence is not starting for me again. I'm starting Anthony Richardson over him, fully healthy Anthony Richardson. Until I see this offense really take that step that I was expecting, I'm not looking forward to starting any of their options aside from Travis Etienne, who has really been their only bright spot, aside from week one. And then to kick off our noon games, the Washington Commanders travel to Philly to take on the Eagles. Over under is 43 points, with the Eagles being 9.5 point home favorites. This is a game where Philadelphia Eagles defense is locked in my lineup. Don't want anyone on Washington's side of the ball. If you have to take a dart throw, I say Logan Thomas at tight end is a pretty decent stream just because the Eagles are not very good against the tight end. I'm not starting Jahan Dotson. I'm starting Terry McLaurin just because of the draft capital. I'm gonna have to, and Brian Robinson. But the Eagles have been really great against the run this week, or this year. Again, I'm not excited about starting Brian Robinson, but he is their go-to back. He's gonna get the volume. I just don't think the game script, the matchup, all of that doesn't look to be a successful outlook for Brian Robinson. I would look to pivot from him if I can. Maybe you were able to pick up a Zach Moss, or maybe you just got lucky in the draft and have a different option to start and start a wide receiver at flex instead. Next we have the Miami Dolphins traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. This is my game of the week personally. I called the game of the week last week with Minnesota and Los Angeles, the Chargers. What a fantasy outroar for everyone except Joshua Kelly. But in this game, the over under is 53.5. I think that point total is shattered. It's predicted to be a close game. Bills are 2.5 point home favorites, even after Miami's 70 point game last week. Man, I'm starting everyone I can on this Miami Dolphins offense. Tua, Devon Achan, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Durham Smythe, even. I think that these are all great options. I think the Buffalo Bills defense is equipped to stop them, but I don't think they will stop them. What happens when a unstoppable force meets an immovable object? That's exactly what we're getting this week, and usually the offense prevails, unless you're the 2013 Denver Broncos. But anyways, Buffalo, I think this is a Gabe Davis game. He's been that reliable target for Josh Allen. He only had one catch last week, but it was a touchdown. He saved your day. But I think this is one of his boom games again. Like I said a couple weeks ago, it's just the matchup is right. Xavier Howard is going to be all over Stephon Diggs. Um, yeah, I think Gabe Davis has a great day out of the slot. James Cook, another option that I'm really looking at. I think he has a great day. Josh Allen, of course. And if I'm starting a tight end for the Bills, it's Dalton Kincaid this week. I think he's going to be the tight end that gets into the end zone if one of them do. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Over under is 46.5. We have the Vikings at 4.5 point road favorites. Bryce Young, I believe he is playing this week. Yeah, Bryce Young is playing this week. Miles Sanders is questionable. Jonathan Mingo likely will not play because of he's in concussion protocol. And like I said, typically concussion protocol can't participants usually miss a week of play. So don't count on Jonathan Mingo. I would not even really count on Miles Sanders. He's going to be playing injured. this is going to be another Adam Thielen game. It's a revenge game. But yeah, we have a quarterback on the other side of the ball and Kirk Cousins, who's on pace to throw for 6,000 yards, and Justin Jefferson is on pace to catch 2,000 yards. So starting them both, of course. Alexander Madison, you're starting him one more week. This is a decent matchup for him. I think the Carolina Panthers run defense is still pretty good. Frankie Louvu is out though, so that's a pretty hefty defensive player that's out. But yeah, look for Alexander Madison have one more week. Pay attention to Cam Akers' involvement his first week in. Don't expect it to be a lot of involvement, but if it is more than what we expect as fans, this could be telling for how the season is going to go long term. He barely came in last week. He hasn't had a lot of time to learn the playbook. So if they play him a lot, say 20-30% of the snaps, then you're rostering him and most likely going to be starting him going forward. I think his talent prevails over Alexander Madison long term. And I was able to find him on my waivers. So go check your waivers, see if Cam Akers is there. If he is, pick him up and stash him. Jordan Addison is another start that I'm really excited for. Sooner rather than later, he's going to take over KJ Osborne. Again, talent prevails no matter what. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Over under is 41, with the Bengals being 2.5 point road favorites. Joe Burrow, he's got to get back on track someday. I don't think that day is this weekend. The Tennessee Titans are a really good defense. Joe Mixon, I expect him to have a struggle for a day. Tennessee Titans are a great rush defense. Derrick Henry, I think he gets back on track this week. If he doesn't, I think it's time to look to trade him. But you're holding on to him for this week to see how he does. I think this is a game that his script could favor Derrick Henry. I really do. I think the Titans are going to win this game um, in an upsetting fashion. However, the Titans are without Traylon Burks, so it's not going to be through the air. It's going to be with Derrick Henry. And look, if he continues to lose snaps to Tajay Spears, again, I'm trying to trade him. And you may even want to trade him right now while his value is still somewhat high. Because if he goes out against the Bengals and has another bad game, you're not gonna get much for him. So maybe you want to trade him now. Maybe you have Tajay Spears on your bench and you want to trade Derrick Henry for another viable running back. Uh, you still have that insurance option with Tajay where you shouldn't feel too skeptical about doing that. If you don't have Tajay Spears, it's a little bit more of a risk because you don't have that handcuff, you don't have that backup option. But I still think right now Derrick Henry's value is high enough to where you can get something good for him in return. But it's a risk you're willing to take. That's fantasy football. Again, Jamar Chase is back to being great. T. Higgins will probably get back in the mix this week. Again, I'm not expecting much out of the Bengals offense this week, particularly. I think Joe Burrow, if he's gonna get back, I don't think it's gonna be this week. I think it's gonna be week 5 and beyond. But we'll see how the game goes. They still have to go out and play the game. These are just predictions. Next, we have the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Over under is 39. Not exactly exciting. The Browns are 1.5 point home favorites. Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, who knows what's going to happen with those two? Just monitor it. I'm not excited about starting Jerome Ford. I'm not as excited to have him on my team as I was when I dropped however much fab I dropped on him. I know in one of the leagues I'm in, I dropped 97 fab out of 100 to pick him up. Not excited about that anymore because 2 days later they signed Kareem Hunt. So I think Kareem Hunt, he knows the system, he knows the offense. I said it last week. He's gonna get more involved no matter what. It's not gonna be the Jerome Ford show every week and every down. Kareem Hunt is gonna get his. They brought him in for a reason. On the Ravens side of the ball, Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham are both out. Justice Hill probably isn't going to play. Again, Gus Edwards is a decent play, but Cleveland is another great defense. This is going to be a tough game for Baltimore. I think that's why Cleveland is favored because Cleveland's defense is great. Miles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Brent Delpit. These guys are just great players um, that just really solidify this Cleveland Browns defense. Zay Flowers is the only person that I'm excited to play, along with Mark Andrews, of course. Even Lamar Jackson, I'm not super excited to play. I think that the Browns are going to force a lot of mistakes, maybe even force a couple turnovers. Miles Garrett, with him being healthy, he's just a force to be reckoned with. I think Lamar is going to struggle this game, and I may bite my words on that, but that's just my outlook. I'm not excited about any Ravens players this week. Even with the utilization of Mark Andrews, he hasn't been spectacular. He hasn't been that tight end two, possibly tight end one that we were expecting out of him. Um, Maybe it's the injury. He's still getting back, getting his feet wet in this offense. I don't know. Again, just not super excited to play any Ravens player this. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. The Steelers are 3-point road favorites with the over/under being 42. Najee gonna lose his job eventually to Jalen Warren. Trade him while you still can. Can't stress that enough. George Pickens is still going to be the number one target. Fryermuth, he's in your lineup. He got into the end zone, but he needs more targets. Regardless of him scoring or not, he has to have more targets. He's a difference maker for this team. I stressed it last week about these tight ends. Even going back to Mark Andrews, his tight ends are not showing up for their teams. They're not being incorporated into the game plans. And these are not just any regular tight end. These guys are top end tight ends who are great players who are not getting looks, who are not getting targets. I mean, everyone minus Travis Kelsey is non existent in fantasy. It's a toss up on who's going to be the number one or number two tight end on the week. Sam Laporta is inching his way up there just because of his role in his offense. But man, Fryermuth got to figure something out. Got to get him more involved, especially with Deontay Johnson being out. Like we got to figure it out. Of course, Kenny Pickett under center is going to cause a lot of those issues. But speaking of quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, I can't say enough good things about him. Yes, he's a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes. The interceptions will come, the fumbles will be there. But the game scripts, like in this one, they're 3-point underdogs and a 42-point over under. Of course, they're going to be throwing the ball. Tank Dell, he has playmakers. Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Damian Pierce, Dalton Schultz. I mean, this guy's going to throw for 300 yards more than 4 or 5 more times this year. So CJ Stroud is in your lineup this week against the Steelers. However, there was a report that came out that said half his offensive line is out. Going up against TJ Watt, that's not something you necessarily want to see. But still, the volume is going to be there. I think he's a great DFS play this week. He's my favorite DFS play this week, but he's not my stream of the week. You'll find that out on tomorrow's episode. Next, we have the LA Rams traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. 46-point over under with the Colts being 1-point home favorites. Anthony Richardson is that guy. I I knew it was gonna happen. I called it. I just didn't think it was gonna happen this soon. I think with him fully healthy now, hopefully he gets a full 4 quarters of football in. If he does, he's gonna be the number one quarterback on the week, maybe outside of Pat Mahomes against the Jets. I think this is a great matchup for Anthony Richardson to succeed. They have a great offensive line. He has a good running back now in Zach Moss that will complement him tremendously. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman. I mean, everything is lining up for Anthony Richardson to be successful fantasy wise. Maybe not NFL wise, just due to the organization and, of course, all the drama that's been there since the offseason. I don't expect this to be a team that wins much, but fantasy wise, Anthony Richardson is locked in your lineup above everyone except I have him ranked at quarterback 4 this week. That's above everyone except Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts. I have him above Tua. I have him above Trevor Lawrence. I have him above Justin Fields. Anyone you have him above Justin Herbert. I think Anthony Richardson this week is going to be great. And on the Rams side, of course, Puka Nakua, you probably have one more great week out of him until Cooper Cup comes back. When Cooper Cup comes back, who knows what's going to happen? Kyron Williams and Tyler Higbee, Tutu Atwell, all locked in your lineup. Expect them to have pretty good days, pretty good involvement. Next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints in a division game. Over under is 40. Saints being 3-point home favorites with no Derek Carr. This is going to be a Jameis Winston game, so that means upgrade your wide receivers. upgrade Rashid Shaheed, upgrade Olave, upgrade Michael Thomas. Jameis likes to chunk the ball. And Alvin Kamara's return game, I think this shatters the over under of 40. Yes, Jameis Williams probably throws 3 picks, but he probably throws 3 or 4 touchdowns as well. Maybe not a terrible DFS play if you're looking to have a budget quarterback, a revenge game for him as well against the Buccaneers. But on the Bucs side of the ball, of course, you have Mike Evans, Rashad White, maybe. He hasn't been too spectacular. I still think Sean Tucker is going to take over that backfield sooner rather than later. Rashad White continues to not be very good. Fans are going to call for it. Everyone knows Sean Tucker is super talented. Mike Evans locked in your lineup. Chris Godwin, not too excited about it. But the one matchup to watch is Marshawn Lattimore on Mike Evans. Marshawn Lattimore has locked Mike Evans down since he got to New Orleans. Now, I don't know if that trend continues, but maybe Mike Evans doesn't have such a great game this week. Marshawn Lattimore hasn't figured out. Maybe they have a special game plan. Who knows? But this should be a fun game to watch. I think the over under of 40 is way too low for this game. And to round out the breakdowns for today's episode, we're going to finish the afternoon games with Denver traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. The over under is 46.5. The Broncos are 3.5 point road favorites. I don't think this over under reaches 46 points. I think it's a low scoring game. I think both defenses step up. I think they get pissed after being blown out last week, both teams. Uh, but nonetheless, I'm not starting Justin Fields. I'm not starting him. I'd rather have CJ Stroud. I'd rather have Jameis Winston. I'd rather have Matt Stafford, all these guys over Justin Fields this week. I'm not dropping Justin Fields yet. I'm just not starting him. I'd rather have Russell Wilson in this game than Justin Fields. Um, Not starting Khalil Herbert. I'll start DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is a decent streaming option, but that's it from the Bears side. Roshan Johnson again. Keep an eye on him. Keep keeping an eye on him. Game scripts aren't too friendly for the Bears right now to run the football, but Roshan, of course, is the most talented back they have, besides Justin Fields. And on the Broncos, Javonte Williams is in your lineup. I think he has a huge game. I think Javonte Williams has a tremendous game this week. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy, and Marvin Mims. In a deep league, I'd start Marvin Mims, not in a smaller league or smaller bench spots. I think Marvin Mims is a super talented wide receiver, but just don't feel comfortable starting him with this offense and all 3 wide receivers healthy. I don't think this is going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I don't think it's going to be a very pass heavy game. I think the running backs on both sides, Justin Fields on the Bears, but the running backs on the Broncos are going to get a lot of work and a lot of yards. But yeah, that's going to round out the breakdown for the early games this week. I'll do the afternoon games, the primetime games tomorrow, along with my DFS picks and start/stream of the week. That's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys set your lineups, enjoy some college football tomorrow. Again, we're going to start branching out and doing some other things. We're just really in the heart of fantasy football right now. Once fantasy football starts slowing down towards the end of the year, championships, we'll start branching out and doing some other sports podcasts, basketball, MMA, things of that nature. Especially in the off season, we're gonna have to find something to fill this channel up with. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for my DFS picks tomorrow and the rest of the breakdowns. Have a good night. See y'all later.